When you think about Spider-Man's villains, there are a few big names that always come up. But there's one guy who's been a constant thorn in his side, someone who has changed and evolved in some truly monstrous ways. I'm talking about Mac Gargan. He's a man who has worn a lot of masks and a lot of monsters, all in the name of power and revenge. So today, let's unpack the absolutely chaotic career of the man behind the monsters. So, how do you create a supervillain? It's not always some grand cosmic event. Sometimes all it takes is one man's petty obsession, a really, really bad idea, and a big pile of cash. In this story, one of a hero's greatest enemies was literally created by his loudest, most obnoxious critic. You see, J. Jonah Jameson had what he thought was a foolproof plan. Step 1, hire a private eye who doesn't ask too many questions. Step 2, throw money at some shady, untested science. Step 3, point the monster you just made at Spider-Man. Simple, right? Well, he kind of forgot about step 4, suffering the absolutely terrifying consequences when it all blows up in your face. And that's the journey we're going to follow. We'll look at that first job for Jameson, the transformation into the Scorpion, his much darker turn as Venom, that bizarre phase as an imposter Spider-Man, and, believe it or not, his eventual return to that good old Scorpion tail. Okay, so let's rewind all the way to the beginning. It all started with his simple job for Jameson, a job that would spark an obsession and ruin Mac Gargan's life forever. So, meet MacDonald Mac Gargan. Before he was a supervillain, before all the armor and the alien goo, he was just a PI. Now, he wasn't exactly a hero, a little greedy, a little shady, but he was good at his job. His whole philosophy could be summed up in one sentence. Hey, as long as the pay is good. And it was that simple creed that put him on a collision course with destiny. Jameson's mission for Gargan was, on the surface, pretty straightforward. Just tail this teenager, Peter Parker. Jameson was absolutely convinced this kid had some secret connection to Spider-Man. How else was he getting these impossible photos? The problem was, every time Gargan got close, Peter's spider sense would go off, and the kid would just vanish. After weeks of getting the slip, Jameson got fed up and decided it was time to take things to a whole new and very dangerous level. And that escalation brings us right to our next chapter, the Scorpion Sting. This is the moment where the man, Mac Gargan, pretty much disappears, and a monster is born. So Jameson took his PI and paid a scientist to put him through a wildly dangerous mutagenetic procedure. The goal? To splice his DNA with an animal that's a natural predator of the spider. Enter the Scorpion. He got a high-tech battle suit, that insane cybernetic tail, and a brand new purpose in life: hunt down and crush Spider-Man. I mean, they really built him to be the perfect anti-Spider-Man. He got super strength, wall crawling, even his own twisted version of the spider sense. But the real centerpiece was that 7-foot-long tail. This thing could whip around at 90 miles an hour and was loaded with a whole arsenal: acid, electric blasts, you name it. He was a walking tank designed for one purpose. But there was a tiny little side effect they didn't mention in the brochure. The procedure completely fractured Gargan's mind. His human greed was swallowed up by the raw, predatory instincts of a scorpion. He became violent, obsessive, and totally unstable. Jameson hadn't created a super soldier. He'd created an uncontrollable monster. And here's the real kicker. Yeah, he hated Spider-Man, but the person he hated most in the world, the man who turned him into this freak, his blinding rage towards J. Jonah Jameson became the one constant in his life, the engine that would drive him through every monstrous identity he'd ever take on. So fast forward a few years. After getting beat by Spidey time and time again, Gargan gets an offer he just can't refuse: an upgrade, a chance at a level of power he'd only dreamed of. This is what sends him down a much, much darker path and turns him into the terrifying new Venom. Just look at this timeline for a second. It's wild. For 40 years, he's the Scorpion. Then, boom, in 2005, he bonds with the Venom symbiote. 4 years later, he's somehow posing as Spider-Man. And then just a year after that, he's back to being the Scorpion. It's a total whirlwind of identities. And becoming Venom wasn't just a costume change. The symbiote took all of Gargan's existing madness and cranked it up to 11. His obsession with revenge warped into this all-consuming addiction to the alien's power. His main goal wasn't just payback anymore. It was a literal, gnawing hunger for power and, well, flesh. And yeah, I mean that literally.
As Venom, Mac Gargan became a cannibal. He wasn't just threatening people, he was eating them. There was this one infamous fight where he just bit off and swallowed the arm of another supervillain. He'd crossed a line. He wasn't a crook anymore. He was a pure, unadulterated monster. But just when you think his story can't possibly get any crazier, it does. What do you do with a monster like that? Well, apparently, you give him the face of a hero. Welcome to Mac Gargan's short and very disturbing career as Spider-Man. So this was during a period in the comics called Dark Reign, where the villains were basically running the show. Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, gets put in charge of national security, and he decides to create his own team of Avengers. And who does he pick to be the team's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? Yup, the cannibalistic monster Mac Gargan. Now, Osborn gave him some special medicine to make the symbiote look smaller, more heroic, but you can't medicate away the monster inside. So by day, he's a hero, fighting alongside the Avengers, but by night, he's still giving in to his cannibalistic urges, eating pieces of the bad guys he catches. And the whole time, he's using his new hero status to try and finally destroy his old enemy, J. Jonah Jameson, who just so happened to be the mayor of New York at the time. What a mess. Of course, Osborn's reign of terror eventually came crashing down. Gargan was captured, and the government forcibly ripped the Venom symbiote away from him. This left him a broken man, and it forced him to go back to his roots. Which brings us to our final chapter, the return to the tale. Now, this is the big question, isn't it? I mean, think about it. After tasting the kind of power that Venom has, power to go toe-to-toe with gods, why on earth would you ever want to go back to being the Scorpion? It feels like a massive downgrade. The answer is actually pretty tragic. It's one word: survival. All those years of his original mutation, plus the immense strain of hosting an alien symbiote, had completely wrecked his body. He was literally dying. The only thing that could keep him alive was a brand new, state-of-the-art Scorpion suit that was also a full-body life support system. The identity he once saw as a curse was now the only thing keeping his heart beating. So, from a greedy PI to a crazed killer to a cannibalistic alien to a twisted hero, Mac Gargan's life is just this tragic loop of obsession and transformation. He's always chasing more power, always trying to get revenge, and he's always trapped by the consequences of that one bad decision he made all those years ago. It really just leaves you with one final question to chew on. Can a man who has been a monster in so many different forms ever truly escape his own past?